Every day, I take it, there are around 10,000 federal prisoners who are in solitary confinement conditions. And I guess the average stay in solitary is somewhere around 75 days. So I know that there was recently a critical Department of Justice report, a critical GA report, and then there were a whole study and recommendations for change, which I was pleased to learn the Bureau of Prisons staff participated in. You were part of this process. And so coming out of that process, I understand you presumably would need to make changes to your program statements and rules and procedures and policies and practices and so on. And I'm just wondering if you could provide us with an update on where we are in terms of translating a new approach to solitary confinement in the prisons. Where are you in this evolution?
Thank you very much, Congressman Raskin. First of all, I would offer to you that, and I'm going to put this in a broader context because I want you to understand that what's happening with what we refer to as restrictive housing as opposed to solitary confinement nationally, including the Bureau of Prisons, but in state prison systems as well. We actually work very closely together in an association of all directors. And we use a different term, it's restrictive housing, because we've largely moved away from individuals, in effect, being in a cell by themselves. At times that is necessary, but the vast majority of people who are in restrictive housing are actually in a cell with someone else. So the solitary confinement, as is typically thought of or depicted in movies, isn't really the case. You're absolutely correct about the Department of Justice Restrictive Housing Work Group and the recommendations that were made by it. It involved roughly a dozen components, including the Bureau of Prisons, Civil Rights, and others. And they were adopted by the Attorney General and recommended to the White House for endorsement. The President did that. But again, I would like to offer that what's in those principles and overseeing guidelines exists now across the states and in the Bureau of Prisons as well. And by the way, there are roughly a little over 8,000 individuals in restrictive housing today. Only about a quarter of them are actually there for disciplinary segregation. The others are there for an investigation of something that's happened that is threatening to the safety of the prison and security of the prison. And others, a small number again, are there usually at their request for protective custody. But those people we work very closely with to move them on to specialized units we have that gradually transition them out to the general population and give them freedom of movement, access to full programs, et cetera.
I got you. The report, I think, stated that this is, again, before a number of these changes were implemented, that the ordinary prisoner in a solitary confinement or traditional solitary confinement type setting would be alone for 23 hours with very little access to the outside. But you're saying that that's not the norm today.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. Yeah. People are not in quote unquote solitary. They're not alone. And candidly, that's related to concerns by all of corrections nationally, including the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, about individuals who may have mental illness that we're not aware of that can be exacerbated by being alone, not to mention individuals who may be questioning taking their own lives.
Gotcha. One other question for you. The Office of National Drug Control Policy found in December that the Bureau of Prisons is conducting a field trial. Is that right? They reported a field trial of a medication-assisted drug treatment program for people who are transitioning back to the community from incarceration. And I'm just wondering what's happening with the field trial of prisoners going back and getting medication assistance for drug problems.
Well, currently, that plan for the field trial or the implementation of that program is suspended. It's a new program that would have gone into effect after the continuing resolution was put in place, and we're not able to do that.
For budgetary reasons?
Yes, currently.
Okay. I yield back. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Chairman.